This is like no Iron Man I've ever seen. That's because this particular version of Marvel Legends Iron Man comes from the Gamerverse, so that this is a Midnight Suns version of Iron Man. I thought before we continue this review is that it might be helpful to get a better understanding of what Midnight Suns, the video game, is. And to my understanding, this is one of the few times we've seen Iron Man in this armor. So Marvel's Midnight Suns is a game developed by Firaxis, which is known for the Civilization games as well as XCOM. So this is a turn-based strategy game. But what's different about this compared to some other turn-based strategy games is there's a deck building element to it. So you need cards to activate powers to defeat the enemies. And the enemies in this case is Lilith and all of the hordes of creatures and demons that go with it. Universally, the game is well liked. However, it was considered a commercial failure, which is unfortunate because, spoiler alert, I really like the look of this Iron Man, and I'm guessing if the game did a bit better, we would have seen other members from the Midnight Suns team take on a Marvel Legends form. And speaking of that, let's get back to the actual figure. Now here's a deep, dark secret that I'm sharing with everybody, is that I've never opened an Iron Man action figure until this one. And if you want to be a little more specific, this is the Mindless One Build-A-Figure wave, and it would be really cool to build the Mindless One, but I don't necessarily know if it's going to be feasible, especially at this point, to assemble all of the other action figures so that I get all of the parts. Which is always a little disappointing part of the Build-A-Figure stuff, but alas, my time machine hasn't been invented yet. When I took this figure out of the box, a couple things stood out, one being the pinned joints. Normally that's not a big deal for me, however, because we have these gold accents on the armor, which look good, by the way. I like this pattern for the armor, the black and gold. It looks fantastic, but when you have the pin sitting just right at the point where the armor is supposed to be gold, it does break up the illusion a little bit. Now, if we look at the bicep, you can see that it's done well there. It goes halvesies with the gold, so it looks like it fits the contour of his armor a little better. But when we have it on his forearm, just like that, you can see there's kind of a big giant hole in the middle. Again, we have a similar situation at the legs. However, we do get some movement here. So we're gonna get some double jointed elbows, which work okay. We're gonna get some double jointed knees, which work a little better. This is where things start to get a little limiting, feels a little frustrating, is that when I try to move his shoulders up, that's about as far as he can go. The reason for that is because the shoulder armor on the outside interferes with the shoulder armor kind of on the upper trap here, meaning that we're not going to be getting a good range of motion for his arms, which is unfortunate because he does come with alternate hand sculpts that have the open hand for the blast effects. Now, similarly, if we are looking at the upper half of the figure, the head moves just that far back. That would normally be okay, but Iron Man being a flying character, I would like to see his head crane back just a little bit more so that we could get some really cool flight poses without him kind of surveying everything underneath him. We do get some motion in the chest. That is good, the ab crunch right there. But when we move down to the ankle, I don't know if this is just a stuck piece or if it is just that limiting. Oh, never mind, look at that, I just got it free, look at that. So we do have it on this side there. Look at that, that's a little better. So it will move around, I just need to loosen up the joints a little bit. Haha, glad we solved that problem. So really the limiting motion is in the top half of the figure. I've already touched on the design a little bit. I really like the black and gold look. I think it's cool. And there are some fine little details around the mask, around the unibeam. And if we can get a really close look, you can see that this is part of the Midnight Suns game. I think it has something to do with the armor being infused with magic or something like that. But the most impressive part is around the unibeam or his arc reactor, is that we have these tiny little glyphs that have this just highlight touch of gold. It looks really good. And the gold itself has a really nice luster. And let's compare it to another gold figure that I recently got. So here we go. This is one of the Iron Grenadier bats. Here is our Iron Man. This one feels a lot more yellow gold. This one is a lot more muted gold. It works, again, with the Midnight Suns look. We want it to be a more yellow gold so that it gives it that more magical appearance. So we've touched on the areas that make it limited as an action figure, but when we look at like the aesthetic, the design, how cool it looks, I think we get a lot of inspiration from the MCU version of Iron Man, which is good. I mean, like, that's a very popular, very good-looking Iron Man outfit, so it is great to see that carried through to the Gamerverse version. Now, I don't know if there's probably part reuse going on here. I would assume so from many of the other Iron Mans that have been made, but this being the first Iron Man that I've opened, I wouldn't know that at this point. So yeah, let's get this guy in some more poses, and I'll give you my final thoughts on the Midnight Suns version of Iron Man, the Mindless One Build-A-Figure Wave. A little important backstory is that I got this guy at Ross. So when the holidays were here, they were just dumping toys on store shelves, and this Midnight Suns version of Iron Man was part of it. So I didn't pay full price for him, and I feel that is fair for this character. There is a lot of limit to his movement, and just because he takes a lot of design cues from the MCU version, where they can play around with and kind of hand-wave some of the limitations of putting a man in a high-tech suit of armor, biggest problem I have with this character is the shoulder armor. If it weren't for that limiting factor where you feel like his arms are just kind of stuck at the side here, I would probably have a lot more favorable opinion of this character. Not that my opinion of the figure is like terrible or anything like that. I think it's just average, maybe a little bit above average because some of the paint applications and finer details look really good. As it stands, this one probably isn't the best Iron Man to track down unless you are collecting every single suit of armor as part of your collection. The blast effects work great. I wish a few more would have been added, but that's just me possibly being a little bit greedy in terms of what you get in the package. When you find the sweet spots of when you pose this character, you get a good sense of how he moves and just the different action poses he can take. The last little tiny thing, again, it's a small thing, but on the back of his fists, as well as his repulsor hands, I feel like there should have been just a little touch of gold paint. I can see why they probably didn't do that, because you are swapping the hands in and out. If you are actively playing with this figure, the paint would probably rub off, and it wouldn't hold over time. So it feels like a little bit of a mixed bag for Midnight Suns Iron Man here, and that's because it is. Design, paint applications, thumbs up. Range of movement, well, you know, I guess like a middle of the road thumbs. And then in some areas, yikes. So that's really everything summed up. And if you like talking about action figures, Marvel Legends, G.I. Joe Classified, pop culture, collectibles, blasters, we cover everything action toy related here on the Ri-Fi channel. So I would really appreciate if you hit that subscribe button. Stay tuned for what I have, because I think you're really gonna like what I have coming up. So that's all I know about Midnight Suns Iron Man from the Marvel Legends Gamerverse Mindless One Build-A-Figure Wave. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.